Oh yes, Danhausen here. Very nice, very evil, very famous. Here to tell you that you, hopefully, are listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Yes, it is a wonderful mix of wrestling history, discussion, and comedy. Yes, very good. Isn't that nice? Well, anyways, if you're not listening to it, how are you hearing Danhausen say this right now? But nevertheless, if you're not listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast, you're cursed.
You're listening to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Now it's time for our host, Nate Manson.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 149 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The brothers Maxon here with you, Nate, and my brother Aaron.
Hello.
Hello.
And I think other than maybe two of them, you and I have been on every single one together.
Yes, I think there may have been, maybe two.
Yeah.
There was one when it was just me and Archie, but that was Archie's first episode, and it was like 2.5 hours. Yeah. But and then, I think that's about it.
Your Barry Rose interview, unless that
the Barry Rose interview, that one too. That was it, though. I think that's it.
That's so consistent, Aaron Mack.
This week we are going back exactly 30 years ago. This week, I guess it's this week. Or maybe next week, whatever. But 30 years ago to WCW Halloween Havoc 1991. We're going to take a look at that show. But before we do that, I have a couple of things I want to ask my brother here. Okay. He does not know. Aaron does not know I'm going to ask these questions. It's on the spot. One is wrestling related. The other is music related.
Okay.
Which one do you want first? The wrestling question or the music question?
Music.
Okay. Not necessarily your favorite band, not necessarily your favorite singer, but give me one album that you would say is from the first track to the last track that you would regard as one of the 5 perfect albums of all time. And like I said, mine aren't even necessarily like Pearl Jam is my favorite band, but I would not regard any of their albums from beginning to end all the way through as one of my 5 favorite albums of all time. Like perfect. Not a bad song on it. All right.
It would be American for The Man Comes Around. It's the 2002 Johnny Cash album. It's fantastic.
Fantastic album. Absolutely. Mine, and what made me get to thinking about it was I was listening to this album the other day. I guess it's not an album. I was listening to the album on Spotify the other day. I used to have it on CD. It's probably still around here somewhere. But anyway, and I was thinking as I'm listening to it, I'm like, damn, I really do think this is one of the best, like first song to final song, most perfect albums. And it's Traveling Wilburys Volume 1.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic, there's not a bad song on it. I mean, obviously it's going to be fantastic with all the talent involved, but god damn, it's a good album. I was like, I have not skipped a track. Yeah, I have been jamming.
Everything, it all, how do I say, their albums, it's like all the songs sounded different, but they all sounded the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because all the guys are super talented, so they took different, okay, this is a Tom Petty song, but all these other dudes are in it. You know?
Yeah, they're the ultimate jam band.
Yeah,
definitely. Tweeter and the Monkey Man. All right, so my wrestling question for you before we get into Halloween Havoc 1991. All right, and I think I posted this question in our Facebook group, and I was going to bring it up on the last episode, but I wanted to get into Archie's roster, so I just kind of hastily skipped over it. in the mind's eye of professional wrestling fans, all right, we all know Ric Flair's a womanizer. And we all know Hulk Hogan's a racist. And they both caught a bunch of shit for it.
Yeah.
Steve Austin's a wife beater. Yet it seems to be forgiven in the annals of time and with wrestling fans. Like he doesn't get treated like a pariah like Hogan and Flair have recently. So I wonder what do you think is the difference? Why do people just forgive the fact that Steve Austin beat his wives? I'm just going to be out with it.
Do you want to know the truth?
Yeah.
I think it's because that stuff happened with Steve, and I'm not saying this is right, okay?
Right.
But that stuff happened with Steve before the cancel culture stuff happened. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people go back and look at things, but it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't big news when it happened.
Well, and social media wasn't a big thing yet.
It was big news in the wrestling community when it happened, but it wasn't like it is now. You know?
Mm-hmm.
If they would probably do like a Dark Side of the Ring and like, oh, let's do Dark Side of the Ring. Steve beats his wife. You know? They might be like, people now would be like, what? I mean, that's terrible. But maybe it happened in a time when shit like that could be kind of brushed under the rug.
And maybe you're right. Maybe it's the people that are of the age that do. And again, like Aaron said, there's no excusing any of the actions of any of these guys. None at all. But I think that you might be right in that our generation on back is much more willing, I guess is the word, to separate the performer from the person. Yeah. If that makes sense. I mean, not in the sense of a Grizzly Smith, you know, I mean, I don't know. It's degrees of extremity.
Look at, it's not the same thing at all, but okay. Michael Jackson did what he did. And anybody that says he didn't is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
One accusation is an accusation. 15 accusations is the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing I never got with the Michael thing is like the parents are to blame too. You know what I'm saying? Like you have kids, okay? The first time somebody was like, Michael Jackson touches kids at the Netherland Ranch. And then your kids were like, we want to go to the Netherland Ranch unaccompanied. You'd be like, no.
We can go to the water park and I'll be with you.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? So anyway, but all that shit came out in like 94 and then he died and people were still like celebrating him and everything and going to his concerts and all that shit. And if you look back at the history of performers, most of them were pieces of shit.
Yeah.
But we're just like...
Because they're humans. They're humans, and humans are pieces of shit.
Yeah. John Wayne. People still watch John Wayne movies. And he's like in articles and shit talking about how shit shouldn't be integrated and everything like that. You know what I mean? But still... Every Tuesday on Turner Classic Movies, we're going to watch 15 Hours of the Duke. You know? This wholesome guy. It's like, no, I like his movies, but he's a piece of shit. He's a racist piece of shit. The Rat Pack. Everybody looks back at the Rat Pack as being these cool cats. They were womanizers.
Yeah.
Not to talk politics. JFK. Sure, he's the president, but he was a horrible prick. On his wife and stuff. So, it's a different era. And now everything's out there and you can't brush things under the rug.
Yeah, and I like the point you made. I didn't think about it. I like the point you made. If they would bring out a documentary or something now that talked about that, it would get into because a lot of the people that are probably 10 years younger than us who weren't keen to the business or the news or anything back then, maybe they don't even know. You have a point, you know.
I mean, Deborah's not going on she's not going on fucking wrestling websites right now saying, "Oh yeah, Steve used to smack me around" or whatever.
Right.
You know, she's not doing it, and now he's old. He ain't smacking his chick around now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
now they just look at him as the fun-loving, beer-drinking guy that's eating chicken wings and shit on YouTube, stuff like that. You know, and like I said, it was a different time.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying, folks, that I don't enjoy watching Stone Cold Steve Austin and them chicken wings. I'm not, you know, I'm guilty of it just like everybody else. The situation, I think it was during the whole Ric Flair situation, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, you know, there's just a double standard there for some reason to me, and I don't quite understand it. But anyway, thank you for indulging me. So now that Aaron has indulged me, we are going to dive into our pay-per-view review this week. We haven't done a pay-per-view review in a while here on the show, so I was pretty excited to do one. And I wanted to go back 30 years. Halloween Havoc. Like I said, Halloween Havoc 1991. It is October 27th, 1991 at the UTC Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with an attendance of 8,900. That's not too bad, actually.
Yes. I know people was like, well, it was papered. I was like, well, it probably was, but they had a good crowd, and honestly, the crowd was into the shit. So.
Mm-hmm. And keeping in mind, folks, this is just about probably 4 to 5 months, maybe 6 months past when Ric Flair
bounced.
Yeah, he bounced out of WCW and headed to the WWF with the WCW World Championship. So eventually there was the infamous Lex Luger-Barry Windham match where the fans chanted, "We want Flair" the whole time. An embarrassing moment for WCW. They're recovering at this point.
And do you know what do you know the story of the belt?
The deposit deal?
Well, no, like the belt they used.
Oh no, I do not.
They didn't have time to make a new belt. Eventually, they gave Luger that WCW belt they had there until they got their big gold back. But until they got that big gold back, they didn't have a belt. So they got like a sticker that said like WCW World Champion, and Dusty Rhodes just slapped that shit on one of these Florida tag team titles he had and sent him out there.
Improvise, baby.
Yeah.
The craziest thing about it is it wasn't like Flair left that day. You know, somebody couldn't have taken the time to commission at least like you don't even need to have you know what I mean? Like commission something. Quick, make me something quick, you know.
He just slapped a sticker on it and said, "Get it up."
I don't remember. Do they not show it up close on the pay-per-view? Because I don't remember seeing.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, because I was going to say I think that would have stuck out to me if I'd have seen it. But that's a great story.
I'm not saying it's 100% true because I wasn't there, but I've heard that story told by wrestlers more than once that Dusty slapped a sticker on it and said, "Giddy up, go on out there."
Time to get a champion, baby.
Yeah.
So we'll get into. I would definitely want to discuss some of the things like Luger as champion, but we'll get into that when we get to Lex, because this is my part of my favorite Lex Luger stuff from '89 to '91. But
definitely.
Anyway, the opening video, I mean, maybe for 91 it wasn't, but it looked kind of Bush League.
Oh, no, I put the opening is spooky opening with ghostly images of the WCW superstars. Actually, I mean, it looked like shit and it fucking sucked.
All right. You were not as nice as I was. I was just like, opening video, kind of Bush League. That's what my notes say.
Trash.
Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone opened the show.
It looked like those video, like the cartoons that they used to try to make like on the Christian Network. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or I was going to say like when they were going to have a Halloween TGIF or something on ABC, and they'd show like, ooh, when they show Urkel, and then they show it's a spooky night on Family Matters.
It just reminded me of like a cheap Christian television network cartoon. This stuff always looked like trash. But go ahead.
Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone open the show. The AEW commentary team here commentating for WCW Halloween Havoc 30 years ago.
You know what I noticed? Because I'm doing did I tell you the trip I'm on right now? I think I'm doing with the pay-per-views of the 90s.
The 100 best pay-per-view matches of the 90s.
Watching every single pay-per-view, picking the best match on the show, and then I'm going to whittle them down to 100, and then possibly do that as like a thing either on this show or another show or whatever. Mm-hmm. But as I'm watching these, you know what I noticed about Tony Schiavone?
What's that?
He doesn't know what to do with his hands. Like, I never noticed it when he was like in Crockett or whatever, because they always did stand-ups and he had the mics and stuff. But when they're like sitting there and stuff, he'll just be like, like watch him. He doesn't know what to do with his fucking hands, or he'll put them on his fucking belly like a
like
a badger, or not like a badger, like a otter or whatever, and he'll just sit there like this. It's like he doesn't know what to do with them, and it's super
awkward.
And I actually like Tony Schiavone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when he's sitting there and then you got to turn around, and he just does not know what to do with his hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, they show a video here of random superstars showing up. I love Cactus Jack.
They pull up in like a Cutlass. Like Abby's got his like fucking dress pants and his shirt and his stogie. Like, of all the two people, why did you pick those two?
It's exactly what I thought.
Why those two? Or at least have Abby in his shit. You know what I mean? But no, he's dressed like a math teacher and he's got a stogie.
Like you said, they showed up in a Cutlass.
Yeah. Like, why not have him? The Cutlass would have been fine. And obviously they weren't in a small car because he's got Abby with him. You know what would have been great? If they wanted Cactus and Abby to show up. Have Cactus pull up and then like open the trunk and like Abby's in the trunk. You know? Don't just have him in the passenger seat taking off his seatbelt.
He's the butcher, for Christ's sake.
God damn it, Isaac. Why did they do that?
Oh, God. Let's see, DDP and Diamond Stud show up. So everybody knows Diamond Stud, the future Razor Ramon, Scott Hall.
DDP, the future DDP.
He remains the DDP. And this is a very eager Eric Bischoff doing these interviews outside the arena as this array of talent shows up to Halloween Havoc. But the point of this is for Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes to show up, and Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko show up and slam Barry Windham's hand in the door. A classic Dusty Rhodes angle, you know.
Yeah. And it is funny because if you think about it, it's like real. These guys like show up to work, do their thing, and then all of a sudden these other guys smash them. It's funny because Dusty's like, "Oh shit, we gotta get you to the hospital," and then they just drive away.
Yeah,
It's not like Dustin, like, "I've never been here before. Where's the hospital?" Like, is he just driving around randomly looking for the hospital? But the thing I will give this segment credit for, okay, is old school wrestling. They had a reason for the camera to be there. Eric Bischoff's job was to greet the wrestlers, no matter how ridiculous it was.
Right.
Pulling up to the arena. Like, you can imagine, you can in your mind, imagine David Crockett producing this show and saying, "Hey, Eric, we're going to do something interesting. Let's have you stand there as the guys pull up and you get their words just as they get to the arena, and then the whole fucking thing happens. If this would have been like WWE now, like there would have just been a random camera out there and it just would have happened.
Yeah.
There would have been like, why was there a camera at that parking lot at that moment?
And there would have been like a strategically placed Raw banner behind it.
Yeah.
Or something like this was just in a driveway, the grass in the background. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it looked very natural.
And it can make sense too, because like say Arn and Larry Zbyszko knew, okay, these guys, they want us to pull up and talk to Eric Bischoff. We'll sit here and we'll wait for fucking Barry and Dustin to show up.
Yeah.
You can imagine, like, okay, they're making all the wrestlers wait in line at this car fucking thing to talk to them, and then they're sitting there and they're just looking at him like, look at this motherfucker.
Arn Anderson sees what they're doing, and he's like, you know what we did to Dusty about 6 years ago? We could probably pull that off in this scenario.
Yeah, so that I liked.
At least Arn didn't pull his Glock, so that was good.
Glock Anderson. Armed Anderson is what somebody else called it. And then did you see that meme that said that Arn spelled backwards is NRA?
NRA, yeah. So up next is one of the most preposterous things I've ever seen as a wrestling fan. I remember at 13 thinking it was preposterous. This is preposterous.
I remember being 8 and thinking it was cool.
And this is the Chamber of Horrors match, ladies and gents. The teams are Sting, the Steiner Brothers, and El Gigante against Abdullah the Butcher, the Diamond Stud, Cactus Jack, and Big Van Vader. Not the best use of some of the talent.
Not the best use of any of the talent.
Well, some kind of a crazy gimmick match. I could see you doing it with, Abby and Cactus or whatever, but
yeah. And the first note I have is the order of introductions for this thing is fucking stupid. It's like all over the place. Like, it's LA Gante, and then you think, okay, well, they're just going to introduce each member of each team. Like, okay,
right.
One team. But no, like, it's like, oh, team number 1, El Gigante, and now let's introduce 3 of team number 2, and now here's this guy. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, they're not introducing the. I think they introduced El Gigante first, then Jack, then the Butcher, then the Diamond Stud, then Abdullah and Jack, and then the Steiners, and then Sting. Like, it was very, like you said, it was very out of order.
Yeah, it's like, who's on whose team? I don't understand. And like Gary Michael Capetta has to stand in the ring and be like, and this match has no rules, and then eventually the chair of torture is going to lower from the ring, and whoever can put their opponent in the chair of torture and flip the switch will win the match. It's like, oh my god.
You feel like Bobby Heenan whenever he would, like when Bobby Heenan would bust Howard Finkel's balls about get to the point with the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, like
and this time you're like, yeah, actually get to the point. Actually, what is the point? Is there a point?
Yeah. Good Lord.
But this match is wacky. And then we have the referee.
Yeah.
With Nick Patrick wearing a silly helmet.
This big helmet.
With a camera on it, and they called it the referee. So there you go.
Patrick had to feel like a fucking asshole. And you can't tell me that with some of the people in this locker room, like a Bobby Eaton, Rick Steiner, Arn Anderson, nobody made one helmet joke.
Right. I just pictured Dusty Rhodes like, listen, Nick, we got great tech. We got a great idea here. We got technology to put a camera on you so you can be, first person view with a referee. And he's like, oh, what are you going to put a camera on my lapel here? What? And he's like, no, baby, we got a bike helmet. All right, we're gonna put a big helmet on you. Big old goddamn bike helmet with a big old camera on it. It weighs 15 pounds, baby.
It ain't even like a spiffy little bike helmet. This is like a bike helmet.
weighs 43 pounds. Good luck, Nick.
Keep your neck up, buddy.
What's the deal with the ghouls in this whole deal?
I have no fucking idea.
I didn't even remember that until because I haven't watched this probably in a few years.
They said the ghouls were there to stretch her out. Whoever got put in the chair of torture, they can't call it an electric chair
because it's Turner.
It's the chair of torture.
This is the match of torture for my eyes.
Yes, I felt like sitting in my recliner was the chair of torture.
I don't have any spots written down.
Oh, there's some. It starts with them brawling outside the cage, which is funny because they say this thing has to stay inside the cage. Well, it starts outside of the cage, and they ring the bell anyway. They show the lever, and it's in the on position.
Yes. I did notice that. Like, all right, so somebody already flipped the switch.
No, I just fell.
Fucking WCW, man. Anyway.
They did, like, nobody was like, hey, like, position your camera and let's get the shot of the switch. And nobody was like, hey, it's on the on position. Let's not show it yet. They were just like, go, switch to it. And, like, it was like a perfect shot of it, too. Oh my God.
You know what? People can say what they want about him not being a wrestling guy. Cornette can say what he wants about him not liking wrestling. But you know what? Shit like that doesn't happen with Kevin Dunn. You know what I mean? Yeah. People can say anything they want about Kevin Dunn, but when it comes to producing a television show, from the minute that they started doing this WWF, WWE thing, him and Vince, it's always been a world-class TV production.
Look, I guarantee he would have had that shot cropped, looked at it before he said, okay, so camera 6, but Craig Leathers is like, camera 6.
The Kevin Dunn would have been like, camera 7. We can't show camera 6.
Yeah. So it's at this point that I wrote, do you think Ric Flair looked at this shit and was glad he left?
He's like, I'd rather hang out with that gobbledygooker.
Yeah. He probably would have been in this. Jim Herd probably put him in it. He probably would have been the guy in the chair.
To shave his head. That's why his head would have got shaved, because his hair burnt off in the chamber.
They would have had people like trying to chant like chair the Flair. Chair the Flair. But the end of this fiasco is Cactus Jack climbs up. He puts the switch back up in the off position. Like he's putting the switch back up in the off position. And Rick Steiner hits the shittiest little baby belly-to-belly suplex to put Abby into the chair. And then Cactus flips the switch from off onto on after he already switched it from on to off. And then Abby is electrocuted.
It's like me trying to figure out which fuse is the one that's out.
Yeah. Yeah. So then he just fries Abdullah, and Abdullah shakes and stuff.
They set off fireworks.
Yeah. For everything that I'll say this though, you know, Tony Khan's talking about how he's better than Ted Turner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Read those things?
Yeah.
Well, at least Ted's explosions worked.
True.
So they do this, and then this guy just got electrocuted. And then Gary Michael Capetta's like, ladies and gentlemen, the winners of the match.
Now that this man's been executed.
Yes, here's the winners.
Yeah. They did crazy shit with Abdullah during this period. There's that Clash of the Champions with what is it, Cactus versus Van Hammer?
Yeah,
and they go. Yeah, he's dressed up like in the big. It wasn't a big cowboy hat, like a big sun hat or something, and he's a fucking rancher or whatever, and he attacks them out in the.
He throws Missy in the water and all that. And I was honestly gonna say this. I actually like this was stupid, but I actually liked the Sting versus Cactus Jack and Cactus had with them feud and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, if they would have been able to like do this like a year ago instead of like the fucking Black Scorpion or whatever, when Sting was like the world champ, that would have been fucking balls.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing, like, I mean, it's so cool, but he wasn't the champ, you know, he was just the U.S. champion or whatever.
Right.
But I actually liked the feud, like when Cactus kept sending him boxes and shit like that. I enjoyed that, but yeah, this was bad, and it should have been. I'd have to go back and watch all the other TVs and everything like that, but this match stems from Sting feuding with Cactus and Abdullah.
Yes.
So why is it Rick Steiner? Like, why wasn't Sting the one to electrocute
the
Butcher?
Yeah. Sting got no measure of revenge.
Yeah. It's just I didn't get it. And after the match, Cactus realizes he electrocuted Abby, and he starts like rubbing his breasts and trying to wake him up. And he's like, "I'm sorry, Abby, I'm sorry." And then Abby eventually wakes up, goes crazy, beats up the powder people on the ramp, and runs away.
And that's it, folks.
There's a Chamber of Horrors. And then they're like, we got a lot more coming up. It's like, Jesus Christ.
It can only be uphill from here, right? Nope.
Yeah.
Next, we have Eric Bischoff and Missy Hyatt in their Halloween get-ups. Missy Hyatt looking all the way live, by the way. But anyway, they're going to interview the Young Pistols, who I wrote here.
You go ahead and see if you said the same thing I said.
I wrote here, I liked the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys. The Young Pistols doesn't work, and these guys don't work as heels.
That's not necessarily the same thing I wrote. I do agree, but what I wrote in parentheses was most underrated tag team ever.
They're up there. Yeah.
Like those dudes. You're gonna tell me you're gonna probably tell me I'm silly or whatever, but for what they were at the time, they were rocker-esque, man, in my opinion.
Oh no, I don't disagree with you. I think they were very, very good. And
like Steve Armstrong is actually, I put this on a post the other day. Steve wasn't the like biggest star or whatever, but he was the complete package Armstrong.
Yeah.
He was big, he could talk, and he could work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Road Dogg was obviously a nice sized guy, could talk his ass off, not a very good worker.
Right.
Brad, super in shape, hell of an athlete. Put the camera on him.
No.
Yeah. Scott.
You know what
Scott was a good worker, couldn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And honestly, out of all of them, didn't have like the size that all the other guys had. There's not a bad Armstrong in the entire bunch.
No.
But Steve just and Jim Cornette's talked about it. Like when he got to the WWF, he was just like, I can't do this shit. And that's a lot of the things on the Armstrongs, other than Road Dogg,
mm-hmm.
you know. And honestly, probably Road Dogg probably didn't have that because he wasn't used to like the territory and just staying home. But all the other guys were like, shit, I can't. Like they said, Steve went up there and fucking went nuts and just left. But fuck it, and just bounced.
The crazy thing with Brad is, and I had never in my life until, to be perfectly honest with everybody, as much as I watch a lot of old wrestling and stuff, just because I guess it was never on my radar earlier in my life and everything, I had never until probably about a year ago watched, literally, other than maybe a few clips here and there, I'd never watched Continental. Okay.
Yeah.
So I started, and it's a great territory promotion until it ends, and then it's awful. But anyway, I don't understand. Brad was a great babyface promo in that territory. I don't know why he never got to show that, or decided not to show that, or whatever elsewhere. But like, it's a completely different personality. Like, I don't know if it was because his dad was with him and he was confident, or what it was, but the Pistols cut a promo, and then we get, this is very, very early 90s WCW, ladies and gentlemen. We get the tag team of the Creatures, masked guys. I think one of them was Joey Maggs, actually.
Joey Maggs and Johnny Rich.
Okay. And then they're facing PN News
And Big Josh.
Big Josh, who is Matt Bourne. How about the rap?
PN News, one of the lines, Halloween Havoc 91. We are here to have some fun.
What a rapper. That PN News.
I stopped wasting ink after I wrote that.
Did you catch the thing about the rap contest?
Yeah.
Some lady
wrote this. Like the rap that he wrote, or the rap he rapped, she's the one that wrote it.
So she won tickets to the show. And they show her in the crowd. The funny thing about it to me was when they're talking about it, Tony Schiavone goes, "You know what? I'll tell you what. Kathy wrote a darn good rap." Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
It's a bunch of fat kids with bowl cuts from 1991 going, yo, baby, yo.
The less said about this, the most, unless you want to roast it.
Not really. WCW should have brought Matt Bourne in and just let him be Matt Bourne.
Yeah.
Like, he would have been a great guy. Like, let him be Matt Bourne. Let him cut, like, Matt Bourne-esque promos. And, like, put him with, if you have to, put him with, like, Sting and Abby. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think, creepy, like, dirty Matt Bourne versus Sting would have been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But no.
Nope. We get Big Josh, the lumberjack.
Big Josh, the friendly lumberjack.
Teaming with the lead singer of PM Dawn. Because that's what PN News looked like, the lead singer of PM Dawn.
That fat fuck. I like, and he's there's different from being fat, and there's being what PN News is built like. It was so weird. Like, he had tits. You know what I mean? Actual tits. Like, Hakeem didn't even have tits.
Yeah.
But he had tits. Like, they jiggled and shit when he ran around. It was bad.
I don't remember on this pay-per-view when he went up for his finisher, did they start the music before he even won?
Not on this one. They used
okay,
to
I wasn't.
They do that when he was in singles matches on, like, Saturday Night or Worldwide. But no,
Yeah.
they didn't do this here.
You know what I always thought was funny about that? They never did it, but he should have done it at some point, and then he didn't get the pin, and then the thing was like,
yeah, turned the music off.
But anyway, the PN News and Big Josh go over here in this matchup, and it was essentially just a squash for those guys to establish a team that I don't know if they ever even teamed again. So up next is a good match.
They were like, "You want to keep going with that, Big Josh?" He was like, "No, baby, no, baby, no." Gotta go be doink. See you later.
Get Cannonball Grizzly away from me.
Yeah.
The next match is a really good match.
Oh, yes.
We have Bobby Eaton against Terry Taylor. At this point, he is the tailor-made man. And part of the York Foundation with Alexandra York, of course, who is Terry Runnels. I actually have here, I have Ask Aaron and Archie, but Archie's not here. But Ask Aaron.
Stuck in traffic.
What do you think? What is your opinion of the York Foundation? Like, what do you think of the whole deal? I think it's the best thing. Go ahead, you tell me. What did you think of the whole thing?
I'll tell you what I think. When Mike Rotundo was in it, I wasn't a huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm honestly going to say this. I'm not a huge Mike Rotunda fan. I've been on record of saying that. I enjoyed IRS. But anything Mike Rotunda did that wasn't IRS, I think is boring. But when they got it with Terry and Mr. Hughes and Richard Morgan, Richard
Morton.
I kind of liked it, and I actually liked the computer gimmick and all that shit. And I honestly think if they wouldn't have got Rick Rude and then started doing kind of the idea of the Dangerous Alliance, it probably would have went longer, and they probably would have done more with it. But when you got Dangerous Alliance and the York Foundation,
right?
York Foundation is going to go down a couple pegs.
I agree with you. That's why I wanted to ask, because okay, so a lot of what WCW is doing here, the Chamber of Horrors, the silly shit that we see, it always to me comes back to WCW trying to do, instead of being WCW, they're trying to do what Vince does.
Yeah.
Be sports entertainment. Nobody's done or will ever do sports entertainment like Vince McMahon. I thought the York Foundation was one of the few times they hit the mark on sports entertainment.
Yeah.
They made it. I don't know. I liked it. I dug it. And
it wasn't unplausible either.
Right.
There's computer programs that you can put somebody's stats in, and this is how many matches he's won. This is how many matches he's lost. He's won the match with this move. He's lost a match with this move.
Right.
And then it tabulates out. It's a thing.
Yeah.
The chair of torture and fucking ghouls, not a thing.
Not a thing.
So let me ask my question.
Okay.
I put Terry Taylor underrated, overrated, or correctly rated.
I think he's underrated in the ring. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he was in the ring. From everything I've ever heard, as far as his pushes and everything goes, he was his own worst enemy. He politicked in the wrong way to politic,
Yeah.
But I think in the ring he's underrated. I don't think he gets credit for as good as he was.
I don't think he does either.
And one of my favorite.
He's kind of a heel.
Yeah. Oh, I was about to say one of my favorite shit heel like little teams of all time is him and Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah.
When they were together, when in the UWF, and then when WCW or NWA bought out UWF. And
I know they wanted to people pattern him after Ric Flair and things like that, and there's rumors that the Red Rooster was supposed to kind of be like a mocking of Ric Flair when it was a heel, like they were gonna strut like a chicken and shit like that, like making fun of Flair at first. But he doesn't even put me in mind of Flair. Like, he puts me in the mind of like when he's in his matches and he's being a heel, he reminds me more of Tully Blanchard.
I can see that.
This is little shit heel that's in the ring, and unless he's getting the advantage, he's running away and doing all this. Yeah. But we don't want to talk too much about Terry Taylor more than that. I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
And what I will say is I think that as we review pay-per-views and stuff, I don't think we've ever, and that's the reason I say I think he's underrated as a worker, at least as far as in our eyes would go, because to be perfectly honest, I can honestly say every time he's ever been in a match on a pay-per-view or something that we reviewed here on the show, as we look back retrospectively at wrestling, we've always said Terry Taylor was in a great match on this show. Terry Taylor was in a great match on this show, One of my favorite matches is actually from, I think it's WWF World Tour. It's either 89 or 90, the Coliseum video. The match is in England, and it's it's Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig versus Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster.
Yeah, isn't that the one where they got to stop it early, though, because he punches him in the fucking face?
Yes, but the match itself is fantastic.
Yeah, fucking Kurt. He didn't do it on purpose, but Kurt clocked the fuck out.
Yeah, he waylays that motherfucker.
He's like, oh, and he just pins him.
But leading up to that, it's a fantastic match.
With an abrupt ending.
So yeah, overall, this one was good. Bobby Eaton wins this matchup. All right. So, any more notes on this match before we move along?
Nope. It's just you're never gonna have. It's hard to have a bad match with Bobby Eaton versus Terry Taylor. I mean,
Exactly. Up next, we get Johnny B. Bad. And you know what? For everything everybody says about Mark Marrow, I was a fan of Johnny B. Bad. I was a fan of him from probably 91 until, I don't know, until he wrestled DDP on every pay-per-view in 94 or whatever. But I thought the early Johnny B. Bad was good. He had potential. But in this match, he is up against Jimmy Jam Garvin.
this is trash.
It has a hot start. Like, the match starts hot.
I'm not okay. I'm not a okay. You said, "Oh, Johnny B. Bad." I never liked Johnny B. Bad.
I know.
Creepy. I don't like the whole. Even when he was a heel, it was fucking weird, and I didn't like it. I don't like him as a babyface. I don't like him as Mark Marrow, Wild Thing, or whatever Wild Man, whatever the fuck he was. I don't like it when he's in his goddamn athletic shorts. I never liked the guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now Jimmy Jam Garvin, I did like.
Mm-hmm.
I liked him when he was gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. And to me, these aren't the fucking Freebirds. Like, they should have been something else. And I know, like, Michael Hayes would be like, well, in real life, he really was like the fourth Freebird. But this is like when the Freebirds were lame, man. Like, everything about this fucking match is lame duck to me. It's lame.
I have
so bad watching this match.
I have not a lot of notes.
Shouldn't. Notes on it.
Johnny B. Bad wins. And that's that. I think, was it originally supposed to be Michael Hayes versus Johnny B. Bad?
I don't know. I think Michael Hayes was supposed to wrestle. They mentioned it earlier. Michael Hayes was supposed to wrestle Bill Kazmaier.
Oh, okay.
But he was replaced by Oz. We'll get there.
We'll get there. Now we go from that debacle.
This show just really goes south here in a minute. I'm just saying. After this one, it goes really south.
Yeah, there's still one more diamond in the rough.
Why not?
But anyway.
We're about to talk about it, but this thing goes south here quick.
For the WCW World TV title, these two guys always had a good match. I don't know that I've ever seen a bad match between Steve Austin and Dustin Rhodes. And this match was great. It goes to a 15-minute time limit draw, so Austin retains his title. And that's one of the coolest things that they would do, especially when they had a heel TV champion, because Regal played the time limit game a lot during his run. And it was always, to me, if it's not overdone, and to me they did it perfectly. They would do perfect timing with it. Whoever was I don't know if the TV title had a constant show, like a showrunner, if you want to call it that or what, but it was always, to me, the best booked title in WCW.
Yeah. It was probably I don't know, Kevin, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like that was just consistently there. It's not the same thing, but I was thinking about this the other day. You know what Kevin Sullivan is? He's kind of the Pat Patterson of WCW.
Yeah. Always around, consistent, good finishes, good ideas.
He might not always be in charge, but he was always there to be like, "Hey, Kev, what would you do in this situation?" You know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and he was usually, let's be honest, as far as the business goes, in whatever little booking committee they had or whatever, he was probably the smartest.
Yeah.
I was reading that Nitro book by Guy Evans, which if you haven't read it, folks, it's a great book. It gets behind the scenes and a lot of stuff that even I didn't know, even reading dirt sheets and stuff, that a lot of interviews he does. But after WrestleMania 14, the initial, what they thought the buy rate was for WrestleMania 14 was a 1.8, which was 20% less than Starrcade 97, okay? And Eric Bischoff was essentially in the back, with the crew and stuff, like, oh, if they spent all that money on Tyson and they had all that hype for Austin and Michaels and blah 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 blah, and they only got a 1.8, there's no way. I'm putting Vince out of business. And Kevin Sullivan said to him,
"It's what you get after it, not what you got into it."
Well, what Kevin said to Bischoff was, "The water's cold, brother." And Bischoff said, "What do you mean the water's cold?" And Sullivan said, "We're about to hit the iceberg." And he was right, like he saw it. He saw the right. And then the buy rate came back, and it was 20% above what Starrcade 97 did. Yeah. So, yeah, Sullivan was I think he was always the smartest guy in the room in WCW.
And also, when you think about it, like all of those booking committees and everything, who was the one guy that was always on them?
It was Kevin Sullivan. Yeah.
So he was probably the most diplomatic of them all, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know, like, people, like, he had, and this isn't the Kevin Sullivan show, but, and I don't even know how I got, well, it's because you said who do you think booked this title thing, but anyway, that's just what I think. I think, like I said, I think he's the Pat Patterson of WC. Do I think he's was as talented as Pat Patterson? No.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of had the same idea, but would do different reiterations of it. But that's just what I think he was. And like you said, it's even in my notes. These guys have never had a bad match. Dustin Rhodes is one of the best bleeders in the history of professional wrestling. Dude always got good juice. And JR says something in commentary that was kind of prolific. You know what it was?
What's that?
He's like, if I'm in charge, I'm drafting Steve Austin, number 1 pick.
And you know what? Who was the first person he pushed for when he became director of talent relations? Steve Austin and Mick Foley. Those are the first 2 guys he pushed for.
Yeah, actually, he legit says that. Like, it's not those exact words, but he was like, if I was in charge, he's like, if I was in charge of a bit of a whatever, an athletic committee. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
Like, if I was in charge of picking the talent, Steve Austin's my number 1 draft pick. Said that in 1991.
And he wasn't wrong.
Nope.
Austin and Dustin, like I said, they go to a 15-minute time limit. Dustin looks great because he almost beat the champ. He just couldn't run out the clock. And like you said, he bled well. Austin looks great because he is him as this in this title run. I'm stammering here. Him in this title run, Regal in his WCW TV title run, and John Bradshaw Layfield in his WWE title run are the 3 best at this kind of a title run.
Escaping by the skin of their teeth.
And when they leave, they're holding their hand up high, but they're holding their ribs. Yeah. And, just fantastic. Great stuff.
Well, we can end it on this, but let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, and I probably know the answer, but I did write this down. What do you like better? Do you remember what they used to do with the TV title? Like in Mid-Atlantic? Like the Crockett's, what they used to do with it?
Where they defended it on TV every week?
Well, they did defend it on TV every week, but they would say, you have 10 minutes to beat the champ, and if you can't beat him in 10 minutes, then the match, they did it where if it was it's 10 minutes to beat the champ, but it wasn't a 10-minute time limit.
Oh, yeah. And if it goes past the 10 minutes, it's not for the title anymore.
It's not for the title anymore. I don't know. I like both of them. I always thought that was kind of a cool little gimmick.
No, I dig that. I dig that. Like, because you're building anticipation with the audience, as that 10 minutes comes up, is this Kendall Wyndham's day? You know what I mean? To beat Tully Blanchard.
Then say he gets the pin at like 12 minutes. He could be like, oh man, if I would have just had that extra time and like I beat you. Yeah, but yeah, then next week, next time they have a 15-minute match. Yeah, it's like I liked both. I liked both, but this was fun, and
there was so much stuff you could do in territory wrestling, like from territory to territory. You go back and watch it now because we obviously, I'm 43. Aaron's 40. 40?
I'm 38, buddy.
38. Anyway, of our age, most of the territory stuff that we've seen is stuff that we've gone back and watched later on in life. So we didn't live through territory wrestling. But as I watch territories, that seems to me to be the coolest thing about it, was that you could do stuff like that from territory to territory, and it works, and you can do it with different people. And then you do something, and then you give it like 2 or 3 years, you cool it off, and they kind of forget that you did it, and then you do it again, with two different guys.
Or a guy leaves, and he can take it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Could never do.
Man, I did this in fucking Memphis. Nobody here's seen it. Let's do it. And even if you do like go back and rewatch it, and you see it's like, it's kind of similar, but it's different because it's different people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, like there's 10 wrestling angles.
Yeah. All right. So the next deal, it is Bill Kazmaier, the world's strongest man. I'm sure a very nice fellow. Against Oz, as we all know, Kevin Nash. I think the Oz gimmick is about to die out here. We're about to head into Vinny Vegas, but Kazmaier. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, he comes out with his giant weather balloon painted like the globe. Like they could have he's legitimately built like a shit brick house and can pick anything up. They can't give him like a solid like plastic globe. They gave him an inflatable globe. Like when he's walking, you can see it like bouncing. It's
like this, like you said, it's like a weather balloon or something. It's like, it looks ridiculous. Let's put it that way. It looks ridiculous. The match isn't good. And the thing about this too is it was like, okay, so we have this match, Bill Kazmaier, who's supposed to be the world's strongest man, and Oz, who is this big quote unquote monster. And they worked so soft in the match. Like while I'm watching it, like everything looks so dainty and everything.
Kazmaier didn't know what the fuck he was doing.
And at this point, let's be honest, Nash probably didn't. He was pretty green still.
But if Kevin Nash wanted to, he probably could have just cross-checked that motherfucker and knocked him right out.
True.
Like Bill Kazmaier is probably the strongest man and like could pick some heavy shit up. But Kevin Nash, people can say what they want to say about him, but that guy could fuck anybody up if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. And it's also a proof positive of sometimes WCW didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Because why would you have a guy that's 7 foot and looks like Kevin Nash and have no fucking idea what to do with this guy?
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the beginning of what they did with him in the WWF, you can see Vince knew what to do with him. Yeah. You can say what you want about the 95 title run being a failure, and it was, but that's because they changed him. But when he was first that monster with Shawn Michaels and the Royal Rumble in Providence and et cetera, man, he was the hottest thing in that fucking company.
Yeah.
And the proof positive, people can say what they want to say about Vince McMahon. And now, like I say every week anymore, there are two Vinces. There is the Vince McMahon that we grew up with, and there is old Vince. Like now I can't say Vince McMahon can look at a talent and know exactly what to do with them because he obviously doesn't. But back then, Vince McMahon looked at a talent and knew exactly what to do with them.
And the most interesting thing about Oz ever is the monkey story. Do you know the monkey story?
I have heard the monkey story, but I think you should tell the listeners the monkey story.
Kevin Sullivan either dropped the monkey and didn't meet, when Oz first debuted, he had a monkey, and he had Kevin Sullivan with him, and Kevin Sullivan was the wizard, and he was welcome to Oz, and he had a monkey. Okay, and apparently the monkey had a collar, and either Kevin Sullivan had the monkey on his shoulder and dropped the monkey and didn't realize it, where the pyro went off, scared the monkey, and it jumped off his shoulder. And according to Tony Schiavone, this monkey hung itself. And the monkey died. So as Kevin Sullivan was like, "Welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz."
He was dragging a dead monkey.
Dragging a dead monkey, and then had to go back with the dead monkey, and took it back to the handler, and was like, "Sorry
about the monkey." Nobody told the monkey life was gonna be easy.
This short." Could you imagine? You're the handler, like you rent your monkey to these people, and then they shoot off some pyro and fucking snap its neck. And he's wearing a wizard mask, and he's like, "Sorry, like I didn't mean it."
Fucking WCW, man.
That's how much a monkey is. Monkeys aren't cheap.
Kazmaier wins this thing.
And you know what the dumbest part is about the finish of this match?
What's that?
I know he's not using it as his finisher, but he uses one of the WCW World Heavyweight Champions finishers to win this fucking match. Like, nobody was like, "Hey, Lex does a torso rack. He's our champ. Maybe you shouldn't do that." I know Luger was pile driving people at this point, but it's still...
Yeah.
You know, John Cena still did the STFU sometimes, but nobody else was going out there and doing the FU.
Right.
Because guess what? He might need to polish that shit off and use it. But no, the fucking mid-card weather balloon motherfucker putting Monkey Man up in the fucking champ's finisher. I was like, oh my God.
The next match is terrible.
Are you fucking kidding me? That's what I wrote. Are you fucking kidding me? This is on pay-per-view.
It is. Check this out, folks. It is Van Hammer versus Doug Summers.
Are you fucking kidding me? And guess what? I'm going on record. Van Hammer is the worst professional wrestler in the history of wrestling. The worst. The worst. Because even the shittiest wrestler still knew how to work their gimmick. You know what I mean? I'm going to say this. I'm going to compliment Brutus Beefcake. Brutus Beefcake sucked in the ring, sucked his promos. When you look at him, nothing's going on. He's got the brain equivalent of Bill Kazmaier's fucking globe weather balloon, okay? Like, what's going on in that balloon is what's going on in Brutus Beefcake's head. But at least he knew how to work his gimmick. Van Hammer can't stomp right. He can't twirl his guitar properly. He can't even pretend like he's playing the guitar properly. He tries to, like, do, like, the Van Hammer rock thing and try to get the people to do the We Will Rock You, and he can't even stomp properly. That guy is fucking garbage. And his hair looks like ramen noodles.
Well, he got to squash Doug Summers at Halloween Havoc 1991 in Chattanooga.
Look at they fucking dust off Doug Summers. He looked like shit. He looked like he hadn't worked in years.
He probably hadn't.
I know, but like, where did they find him? Like, of all the people,
that's what I was going to say.
That's honestly what I'm saying is I don't remember Doug Summers ever being on WCW again.
I don't think so. I don't think he was on WCW before.
Like, I don't remember Doug Summers in the WCW. So what the fuck? You couldn't get Barry Horowitz?
Well, that's what I was going to say. And also...
Couldn't get Wayne Gill or Dusty Wolf?
Well, and this pay-per-view's in Chattanooga. I could understand if the pay-per-view was in Minneapolis. You know, dust off Doug Summers from the AWA. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? This was like, this should have been a dark match. If that.
Or not a match at all, yeah.
Not a match at all, but on the fucking pay-per-view? You fucking kidding me?
The next match is good.
It's okay.
It's Brian Pillman and Richard Morton for the WCW Light Heavyweight Championship, the tournament final. Actually, hold on a second here. I don't have a lot of notes on the match just because I watched it, and I essentially wrote 2 pros. Of course, it's good. So I don't have, but what I will say is this: I have here in front of me the brackets of this tournament, not brackets, the brackets of this tournament. Brian Pillman got a bye in the first round. I don't know what happened there. I don't know why that happened. I don't remember. But anyway. So he got into the semifinals. The next match was Joey Maggs versus Bad Street.
So Joey Maggs versus Brad Armstrong.
Yes, and Bad Street won that match. The next match was Mike Graham against Terrence Taylor. Mike Graham won that match.
Okay.
And then Richard Morton against Johnny Rich. So then your semifinals were Pillman versus Bad Street, which I'm sure Pillman versus Brad Armstrong was really good.
Fantastic.
Pillman went over. And, of course, Richard Morton went over Mike Graham, which I'm sure that was a good match, too.
Yes.
So anyway, this is your finals, Pillman and Morton. And I thought I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was good. Like I said, I don't have a lot of notes on it because I was watching the match. To be honest, I wasn't taking a lot of notes.
Yeah, and like I said, I didn't hate it, but I think I remember liking the match more than I liked it when I watched it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but it just, to me, it was like, okay, this is the light heavyweight championship, but it didn't seem to pick up. You know, like it was a good match, but to me, it wasn't like this isn't the match to showcase your light heavyweight. Like I would have rather if I'm gonna have my light heavyweight championship final, I'm gonna have it be that Brad Armstrong Brian Pillman match. I bet that thing was fucking gangbusters. You know what I mean? Like these guys didn't do anything to get people off their fucking ass. You know what I'm saying?
And
like,
could it be that? I mean, at this point, Brian's what, 2 years in? Did he start in 89, 88, 89?
He got to WCW then. I think he started a little bit before.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, could it be a matter of he's not a veteran yet. You know, he's still growing as a performer, and Ricky working as a heel. I
know, that's what I was going to say. Like, Ricky wasn't supposed to be doing all that shit right now because he was in the York Foundation. So, like I said, I think it was just, I think the finals were
misbooked.
Yeah.
Well,
like,
Brian,
if you're not going to have Robert win it, why even put him in the finals? And I know it was because they could get Ryan Pillman a win over Ricky Morton or whatever, but
right.
Yeah, I remember the match being better than what I thought it was when I was a kid.
Brian Pillman wins the light heavyweight championship with a high cross off the top for the win. And up next, we are what do I want to say? We are treated to. Well, later on it'll turn into that, but at this point, we are treated to what is going to wind up being one of the more positive things about the early 90s WCW.
Well, before that, we get Missy Hyatt trying to interview Bobby Eaton, find out if he knows who the Halloween Havoc Phantom is. And he says, "Why are you trying to interrupt me, Missy? I'm just trying to celebrate because I just won my match." And he just has a pumpkin. That's how he's celebrating. What's he doing with the pumpkin?
Bobby Eaton's a simple man, all right?
Let's celebrate with his pumpkin.
It is the WCW Halloween Phantom against the Z-Man, Tom Zenk.
Should have been a heel.
Oh, yeah. Tom Zenk. I don't know if he played hardball and never wanted to turn heel or what, but he was a baby face his whole career and didn't work as a baby face. If that makes sense. Like you want to be the opposite of what you should be. Well, anyway,
from everything I've heard, in real life, the motherfucker was like, nobody hated him, but in real life, he was like a heel.
Yeah, cocky, and I don't know if you ever heard any of those interviews he did with Meltzer back in the day on back when they had like the internet radio shows or whatever in the early days of, and I mean, yeah, totally a fucking heel, like cocky.
He should have been I'm gonna come to Atlanta, I'm gonna win my match, and I'm gonna fuck all your bitches type of guy. And they just didn't do it. I don't understand why.
Nope, me neither. The Halloween.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you again.
That's all right.
And I know, like, we've had debates before about Tom Zank, but like in the ring, he was good. You know what I mean? But I just think that dude would have had a better career if he just would have been a bad guy.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Not to talk about another podcast, but on the Stick to Wrestling podcast with John McAdam, he brought up that back when the whole deal we talked about at the beginning of the show with Ric Flair happened, where he left WCW. He said, my fantasy booking at the time, because he said the same thing we just said, Tom Zank should have been a heel. And he said, my fantasy booking at the time would have been Ric Flair leaves, and you do some kind of a shitting on Flair shoot thing because he just left, you do it, whatever. He said, Tom Zank puts on the robe. Tom Zank walks to the ring and says, you don't need Ric Flair. I'm the Nature Boy, and there you go, gangbusters. And it probably would have worked.
Yeah. It would have got tons of heat.
Mm-hmm.
Because then people would have been like, you ain't Ric Flair.
Right.
We ain't no Ric Flair. But yeah, I mean, I thought of him more of like not Rick Martel, but that type of thing. But yeah, that probably would have worked. Like, it just, I don't know. Like when he left like WWF, and like that was the other thing the guy would do. He'd just get pissed and fucking leave.
Yeah.
Like, fuck it.
Well, Z-Man is facing the Halloween Phantom. First of all, the Phantom, they did not do a good job disguising who the Phantom was. It's obviously Rick Rude. And they didn't even give him...
Schiavone goes, oh.
That's a rude awakening.
That's a rude awakening. There's only one guy I know that can hit it like that. And he doesn't say who it is, but he just... It's like, ugh.
Yeah, they do absolutely a terrible job of disguising who this guy is. But that's okay, because it's gonna result in, well, I know you too, our favorite run of Rick Rude's career is his run in the early 90s in WCW. Obviously the Halloween Phantom goes over Mr. Zank.
Do you think that was, I don't know if I just thought of it. Do you think with how obvious that was is why Paulie did it in ECW?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt. I don't know why it
just popped into my head, but I was like, oh man, he was revving that shit from 90.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's not even a doubt in my mind that was what was going on. The next match is for the WCW Tag Team Championships. It is the U.S. Tag Team Champions, the Patriots. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go on.
Against Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, the Enforcers. And let me tell you, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko are working machines, because they actually got a good match out of these two clowns. I was watching the match. I was like, this is actually pretty good.
It was. And I was going to say this. I knew you were going to talk about them being clowns. Or Todd Champion, if he would have been given enough time to advance his skills and being with the right people with his size and his look and shit, I think he could have done something. Firebreaker Chip, he looks like a little fucking little monkey. I don't think he sucked. That dude sucked. Fucking Firebreaker Chip. Like, what does that even mean?
Firebreaker.
Firebreaker Chip. Anyway.
Shouldn't it be Firefighter Chip? I mean, if you're going to do the firefighter gimmick, or fireman Chip. Firebreaker?
Was it Chip? Anyway, this is bad. Well, I shouldn't say it's bad. It's good because it's Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko. Which it's funny because it's really just Arn Anderson if you ask Arn Anderson. Because guess what? Did I ever tell you what I heard Arn Anderson in an interview say that he called Larry Zbyszko?
No.
He used to call him the dime store Indian because he would just stand there in the corner and do nothing.
Arn did all the work.
Like the Indian that would hold like the cigars or whatever in the dime. Yeah, he's like, you're a dime store Indian. You just stand in the corner and don't do shit. I'm out here doing all the work. Dime store Indian.
The cruncher. But yes, the Enforcers go over on this, and like I said, I thought that the Enforcers got a good match out of these guys. I did not hate this match. Like when it first started, I was like, oh, I forgot about this. I'm gonna hate this, and I didn't. I thought it was pretty good. We get to one of the highlights of the show here. Eric Bischoff is going to interview Paulie dangerously with Medusa, and I put down here, as we always talk about on the Reliving the Extreme podcast, it's Heyman being Heyman. He's fantastic. He's fan-fucking-tastic here. Paul is so good at capturing, even though everything about him is so fake, it's so real. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's so good at raw emotion. And essentially his story is, you guys told me I can't commentate anymore, so I'm going to put you out of business. And
I couldn't commentate anymore, but you're too stupid to realize I still have a manager's license.
Mm-hmm.
When you let me commentate, I was complacent and I didn't have to be a manager. But now you won't let me commentate, and I still have my manager's license, so you just basically fucked yourselves. Like, he doesn't
right, yes.
He's like, I was being good.
Right.
Being a good little company soldier.
And Paulie brings out the Halloween Phantom, who, of course, reveals himself. Paulie says that he's going to go after the top in WCW to start taking the company down brick by brick. I think that's a quote. He says, taking WCW apart brick by brick by going after Sting first. And, of course, obviously, the Halloween Phantom reveals himself to be Ravishing Rick Rude. And it is amazing what difference. Like, Rick Rude is almost two different people from WWF to WCW.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the WWF, and I'm not even knocking the WWF stuff. He was great there too, but he gets to WCW and he just gets to be a completely different gimmick and a completely different character. And he's so much more of a badass.
Yeah, like in WCW, he wasn't. In WWF, he was like how do I say it? Like
Chippendales dancer.
A Chippendales dancer, almost coming off somewhat as a cream puff. You know what I mean? Even though he was this or whatever. But in WCW, he was the guy at the bar that could just deck you with one shot and you go down. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. And he's great here with his promo.
Yeah. And this is, we're going to talk about good looking women here. You know what's always funny? Like, every once in a while, I just forget that Medusa was hot. I don't know why I always forget. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I just always forget. I'm like, you know what? Medusa was hot. I don't know why I always forget. Every once in a while, I'm just like, God damn, she's a good looking woman.
And Rude cuts the promo. He's going to take out Sting. and this is the beginning of something great in WCW with Rick Rude. The WCW Rick Rude, the WCW early 90s marriage with Rick Rude is really good stuff. And, I mean, really, it mostly ended because of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You know? But that's that.
A lot of the good WCW mainly ended with Hulk Hogan.
True. Very true.
Like, oh, we got this good thing going on with like Ron Simmons and Rick Rude and Terry Funk, and none of them want to do anything with Hogan because Hogan wants to bring in his fucking fat friends and have him fumble or fuck around for him.
I think Brutus Beefcake should go over Terry Funk, brother.
Yeah. Hey, let's do this with Starrcade. I think it should be me and Brutus. Worst fucking Starrcade in the history of everything. And fucking what? The NWO, okay, yeah, you got into that. That was cool, you know. Then the NWO started running its course. It was getting bad. Okay, nobody cared about that shit. But, the Wolfpack. People like the Wolfpack. They're buying that shit. Well, you better put me in that, brother.
Yeah, give me a big sock hat, brother.
Give me a big sock hat so I can act like I'm cool. It's like, no. Oh, my God. You ruin everything, Hulk Hogan. Everything you did after 93. You even ruined 93. Oh, Yokozuna. I'm going to ruin him.
Yeah.
I'm going to take another year to get him back. Jesus Christ. Fuck you, Hulk Hogan. I just realized Hulk Hogan ruins everything.
So up next is the WCW the WCW World Championship match.
That should be a podcast we do. Like
Hulk Hogan ruins everything.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan ruins everything, and I'm just gonna figure out all the little things that Hulk Hogan ruined.
It's 2 out of 3 falls for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
Hulk Hogan even ruined Hulk Hogan.
That's the name of the podcast. Hogan ruins Hogan. That's the ultimate. That's the finale of the podcast. We're going to get to that eventually at the end.
Okay, go ahead.
Ron Simmons challenging Lex Luger for the WCW World Championship. 2 out of 3 falls. And there's a couple of notes here that I wanted before we get into I don't have a lot of notes on the match itself. But first of all, this match, they did a great video package on Ron Simmons. I got to give him credit.
Yeah.
The video package before the match was great. And then also one other pre-match thing. I got to experience 2 in the same match, 2, count them 2, ladies and gentlemen, of my favorite ever WCW entrance themes.
Yeah.
The Ron Simmons / Doom entrance theme and that cool ass Lex. I don't know why they didn't use that when he came back. That's a cool fucking entrance, man. I love that tune.
It is. And that fucking Ron Simmons' Doom music is fantastic.
Oh, that's one of the best entrance themes in wrestling history.
And it's funny, like when they start WCW Saturday Night, and I'm not being, whatever, because I dig it. When he's in WCW and they're doing the fucking shit on Peachtree in Atlanta, letting all the inner city kids in for free and shit. When Ron Simmons comes out, they show that crowd, and all them kids are getting it and shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm not making fun. I'm saying like that. Those kids.
Oh, it was Dude
looks like us. He's in our community.
It's like JYD. It's like JYD in New Orleans.
This kick-ass music, and them boys were out. Those boys were out there just getting it to Ron Simmons' music.
It's great. It's a great fucking theme.
Yeah.
He's a great wrestler.
Great wrestler. He's fucking
cool as fuck.
Shit. Yeah. He's smooth. He's terrifying if he needed to be. You know what I mean? So yeah. And I still say this, and like you said, I even have it in my notes. Like this, they did an actual really good job at making this seem like a big fight feel.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You said like with like the video packages, and the entrances and Nick Patrick doing the rules and being like, you got to go, Hughes, you're not supposed to be out here, and things like that. And yeah, it was really well done. And I've said this for a long time. I don't think it was a pivot because they put Luger in it, but I think initially when this idea was brought up of Ron Simmons trying to go for the championship, it was supposed to be Flair.
Oh yeah,
like they were going to put Flair and Harley Race together.
Mm-hmm.
I really do think that. Like it wasn't like, oh, they were going to do something completely else. Like this was going to be Ric Flair feuding with Lex Luger. I think it was going to be Flair versus Ron Simmons.
Mm-hmm.
And Flair bolted.
Yeah, but yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that, and actually, Flair and Race together, that would have been.
That's what I'm saying. That was the idea.
But this match is good.
Yes.
It's not great, but it's good. And I said at the beginning of the show, I was going to touch on this later when we got to this match. This is from 89 till he leaves in 91 is not even 89, probably 90, 91 is my favorite Lex Luger stuff. This reign, a lot of people look at it, it kind of gets looked down upon because it is the thing that they did after Flair left. But I actually liked Luger with Harley Race as the heel champion in WCW. I think it worked. I think, he filled the role well. Did he bring business up? Probably not. But for me watching, I don't give a shit about that. I just watch what I watch and like it. And yeah. I thought he was a decent heel, a good heel champion. And the package deal with him and Race and Hughes, I thought was cool. And I got to give it to Luger. I think he helped keep the company afloat at this point.
Yeah, and I put that in my notes. It's 88 to 91 for me, like when he's first with the Horsemen and then broke off, and like when they did like the shit in the Battle Royal where they wanted JJ to win the Battle Royal and wanted him to eliminate himself, and he got mad and dumped them all out and all that shit. Like that was good shit, and Flair led him through some great matches, and then the 88 to 91. You put is your favorite Lex Luger. I put is the only good Lex Luger.
Well, all right then.
Anything after that is just garbage. The Narcissist is boring. The Lex Express probably would have worked in 1988. Didn't work in 1993. He was boring in 1994 through 1995. And in WCW, he was I can't speak.
Directionless?
Yes, fucking mess. Like
I agree.
The only time I enjoyed him in WCW after he went back was that brief period of time where he was pretending to be a babyface when Sting would be like looking at him, and then he'd like be a heel when he wasn't looking at him. But it was like he was boring. Yeah. Like we were talking about right now, we're talking about 1997 on my show. Jesus Christ, Lex Luger and the Giant. That is so fucking boring.
Yeah, what a cold thing that is.
God damn. This is like NPR at 6:00 in the morning.
Well, any notes on this match before we wrap up Halloween Havoc?
Simmons beats him quick with the spine buster, and that was a good call to me because like it basically said, look, if this wasn't 2 out of 3 falls, Luger would have been fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if they have a return match on this, but if they did, that was the way they could have done it. They could have been like, look, man, if it would have been 2 out of 3 falls, I got you in like 5 minutes, you motherfucker.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was cool having Dusty out there. Dusty and Race kind of got into a little bit. It was cool having Dusty out there, but it was classic Dusty having Dusty out there.
Yeah. When he came out with Ron, that was what I thought. I was like, look at Dusty.
Yeah. For one, he's wearing some high-waisted jeans. Like, that's a high-waisted. But Yeah, it's classic Dusty putting himself out there. Second fall, Luger wins that by DQ because he goes over the top rope. So right there, it isn't even like, Luger didn't beat him 2-3 because Ron beat himself because he dumped him. And then Ron goes into the steps, and Luger ends up hitting the attitude adjustment pile driver kind of out of nowhere and pins him 1-2-3. And that's the end of the match. And it's the best match on the show.
I think it was my second favorite match on the show. My favorite match on the show is probably Eaton and Taylor, but
mine was until I watched this, and it wasn't even because these guys, I don't want to say it, had a better wrestling match. It was just everything involved in it.
Right. But overall, yeah, I mean, it was successful. It did everything it needed to do. It established, like you said, with that first fall, you established Ron Simmons as a fucking contender, and very well done. And I wrote down here that politics, at the end of the day, politics made Ron Simmons one of WCW's missed opportunities.
Yeah.
I think that because by the time he got to the WWF, the climate that was there, everything that was going on, I'm not saying the WWF misused him because I don't think they did. For what he was at that time in his career in that company, I don't think WWF ever misused him.
No, they got him they got exactly what they should have got out of Ron Simmons, and Ron Simmons gave them exactly what they needed.
But at the age that he was between 91,
he couldn't have been. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you with the WWF thing, but when you said the age, I was going to say at that time, he couldn't have been WWF champion.
No, well, but what I was going to say going back
anyway.
Yeah, what I was going to say going back was to my previous point was the age that he was, the shape he was in, how over he was, and how talented he was from 91 to 94. And I know Bill Watts put the belt on him, but that's why I said politics ruined it. Because Bill Watts knew what to do with him. And if they would have just let him stay at that top tier and not taken him down like they did, he could have been, first of all, he would have stayed longer. And he could have been a big part of a better main event picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would have much rather see Hulk Hogan versus Ron Simmons in 1994 Starrcade. But Hulk Hogan ruined that too.
Fuck you, Hulk Hogan.
No, he didn't. He didn't want to work with Ron. People talk about him not wanting to work with Rick Rude and Big Van Vader. They wanted him to work with Ron Simmons, and Ric Flair said it. Ric Flair went to Ron Simmons, or Ron Simmons went to Ric Flair and said, "Hey, I heard you didn't want to work with me." And that's why he's like, "I wanted to work with you." And he's like, "Hogan." He's like, "I heard Hogan say I don't want to work with Ron Simmons." Hogan didn't want to work with the dudes that he was afraid of.
Right.
Oh man, I ain't gonna work with fucking Vader or
Rick Rude
or Ron Simmons or.
He's like Rick Rude's wanted to potato me for years, brother.
Yeah,
did they ever even work together, Hogan and Rude?
Probably at some point.
I'd never seen it.
I'm sure they have somewhere. At some point, I'll look for it. I don't go to bed till 4:00 in the morning. I'll find it.
Well, that is it. Halloween Havoc, 1991, and I gotta say, I gave the show, and I always do, out of 5, just as a fun little deal. I gave the show 2 out of 5.
I gave it 2.5 stars, and it was for everything you want to say about the Chamber of Horrors match. It was like we were talking about before. It's a train wreck, but it's a fun train wreck.
Now.
Bobby Eaton and Terry Taylor was fun. You know, the tag team match was good. The thing that hurt this show is that fucking little middle run, man. Oh my God.
With Kazmaier and Oz and Van Hammer and Summers.
And it's like, oh my God, what are we watching? I just had Johnny Bad and fucking Jimmy Jam Garvin. What the fuck is going on? It's like they put like a WCW Worldwide in the middle of that fucking pay-per-view.
But at the end of the day, it's still more fun to watch than anything we get presented nowadays.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is it for the Halloween Havoc 1991 edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And I didn't do it at the beginning of the show, so I'll do it now. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned to the WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network. All of these shows are going to be coming at you. I'm going to be tired, but it's going to be worth it. Of course, you have the We Can't Wrestle podcast and Reliving the Extreme. And also coming soon, right now, actually, if you go onto any podcast app that you're using, whether it be Apple, whether it be Podcast Addict, anything, you can actually search for Maximum Gold. And myself and David Gold, I have all the episodes of that show up now for you to listen to. And there are more coming of that show. Aaron's show, the year that was on the WrestleNet radio station, is also going to become a podcast. We're talking 1997 right now on that show. Week to week, Aaron reviews the TVs, and if there is a pay-per-view going on that week, recaps them for us. We all give our opinions. The year that was is a great show, and another show that's great, our buddy Archie Mitchell, and that's our Modern Product show for the WrestleNet Radio Podcast Network. Archie every week with If You Smell What the Arch is Cooking, talking about AEW, NXT, whatever's going on in the modern product that week. And you know what he does?
It's got the highest production values, but my show would have good production values too if I had Archie Mitchell money, but I don't. So I'm just back here putting it together in my basement.
with the rats
and stuff. But Archie's up there in the clouds putting his shit together.
I got to give Archie props though. He does his show Joey Styles style. He's solo. He does an hour by himself.
It's because nobody wants to be on it.
And of course,
sorry,
we also he knows we're just joshing. We're just joshing. And, of course, I will also have my show, The Year That Was. Or, no, that's your show. My show is Slice of Time.
I'm trying to scoop my heat.
Where we talk about the news and notes and results from 25 years ago behind the scenes in professional wrestling. And it's always fun to do the indie results as well. So stay tuned for all of those shows on the We Can't Wrestle Podcast Network. They will all have their own podcast feed that is coming within the next week. I'm almost done. Got them almost done. And that is coming to you, to your ears. And if you will. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Aaron, any salud for our listeners this week?
Just thanks for listening. We can't wait to impregnate your ears with our love that we put into our podcast.
You may have to knock some podcasts off your listenership.
By the time you're done listening to The Year That Was, there will be a baby in you.
Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next week on the We Can't Wrestle podcast.